And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, just about ready to get back into this first series of the day. Just having some technical difficulties. Thank you for bearing with us. We are going to be jumping into Neeb versus Lambo very soon, Roddy. An exciting Protoss versus Zerg matchup.
I'm ready. I can't wait for it. I'm ready to talk about it for a long time. But first, I have to ask you, Nate, after watching that video for 7 minutes, which suit will it be?
They're all pretty broken.
I know you love your co-op.
They have to recharge, though. You can't just spam one. That's the hard part. You can on the other commanders in co-op, you can just spam whatever you want because they all recharge really fast. But you have to switch with Phoenix.
So you're telling me even in co-op, Protoss is the hardest race?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we're almost good to go with Neeb versus Lambo. I don't think we're going to see any Phoenix action here, even though there's a small chance that maybe Neeb will start making a couple of Phoenixes. Unfortunately for Neeb, those are going to be nowhere near as good as the Phoenix we just saw in that little co-op video.
Sadly not. I think that the co-op Phoenix, they can lift 2 units at a time, Kev, your favorite.
Oh my God.
They can randomly dodge attacks.
That sounds so good,
Yeah,
Nate.
they can even do your taxes for you. They're great. But we are loading into the game. We are going to actually get into this. You got an over-under on how many Adepts we'll see?
We're going to see a lot of them, even though Adepts did get nerfed, so I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of Resonating Glaives openings. I already feel those fell out of fashion a tiny bit. The Zergs these days got so incredibly good in figuring out when to make units against those openings, but I still think there's a good chance we're going to see some 1-gate, Stargate, and then multiple Adept shade across the map. Either way, Nate, we are finally ready to kick off our first match of the round of 16.
That is right. We have loaded in. Both players are active in doing things. Kev, in the bottom right position, the blue Zerg player. He is Lambo.
Hey, did we see a cheese warning? I don't think we had, right?
I don't think we got to see one. Would you? I don't think I'd put either of these guys as super cheesy.
No.
Nah. His opponent in the top left, the red Protoss player representing the United States of America. He is Neeb.
The Neeb chant is back, Nate. It's starting.
It's the Neeb roar.
Even though Neeb is definitely not a very cheesy player, he did go for a cannon rush yesterday. We mentioned it a little bit earlier in the preview talks, but I'm not expecting a very cheesy series here. Lambo is the type of Zerg that just likes to defend, likes to spread creep. Eventually, by the time he's maxed out, whether it's on Ravagers or a whole bunch of Hydra, Link Bane, that's where he will start attacking. But before that, I'm really not expecting Lambo to get too out of line in this series, which is actually quite nice for Neeb because we all know how comfortable Neeb is if he can just go ahead and execute his build and put on some light pressure on the Zerg, but actual light pressure, not light pressure as in a no-regret light pressure.
Yeah, no-regret light pressure is, I think that's his own category of attack in StarCraft 2. So what are we really looking for in Abyssal Reef then? What do you like on this map? Is this a better map for the Protoss to go for? One of those Oracle openings and just maybe some Phoenix harass?
I feel like a lot of the PvZs on this map between two evenly skilled players come down around the big battle around the fort base of Neeb. That Neeb is most likely going to take down the high ground, even though this is an awfully early proxy pylon. So while I'm talking about, is that going to be the super fast Stargate? It's like the fastest Stargate ever.
That's pretty forward. I mean, he's got the gas in his main base. He's waiting for that Cybernetics core to finish. This pylon's going to finish, and Protoss versus Terran style is just Stargate right out there?
I mean, it's still early here in Austin, so maybe Neeb is under the impression that he's playing a PvT, and he's like, you know what? Those proxy oracles are pretty good. I'm going to kill some STVs.
If he found a way to kill SCVs in this game, I would be pretty impressed.
The infested Terran may be around, no, Nate?
Yeah.
It's kind of bizarre. I mean, I was talking about the fort base because a lot of the PvZs on this map come down towards that fort base where Storm is almost ready or not ready yet. Yeah. Hydra Bane comes busting through the rocks, and you're going to have a close fight with Photon Overcharge and Immortals. And will they be able to keep the fort alive or not? Well, it seems like none of that matters, as Neeb is going to put on some pressure here immediately with his first Adept. But obviously the main purpose of this Adept is just to keep the Zerg busy and prevent Lambo from scouting that proxy Stargate.
Yep, and keeping the Adept running around. The Overlord comes over towards the natural ramp. Doesn't really see a whole lot. Lambo, there is nothing to see there because it is not there. The Adept still dancing around inside of the main base. A little drone micro, keeping him alive.
Should have let those spores finish up if you only knew, Nate. 2 extra gates being wiped in at home, so there is not a proxy gateway. So this is not going to be an oracle into some sort of a gateway all in. This is just a super fast Oracle that is going to be able to kill quite some drones. If you take a look at the natural mineral line right now, the queens are a little bit out of position. And hello, Nate. Here is that first Oracle of the day.
And as you see, the terror of every ladder player's dreams, the Oracle swoops in, and 7 drones are gone in a heartbeat, Roddy. Neeb pulls the Oracle back with barely 25 hit points, but gets a very solid amount of damage to start this game off.
Yeah, and that's only the first Oracle. There's going to be a second Oracle as well. I'm sure as hell that Lambo is very confused. He's like, what? At 3 minutes and 50 seconds, there was an Oracle in my natural?
Now you know what it's like to play Terran, Lambo.
That ain't supposed to happen. These Lings are going to work on the pylon. Will they be able to unpower the Stargate before Oracle number 2 is out? I don't think it will. So that's good news for Neeb. He's going to have his 2 Oracles, and that's probably all he wanted anyway to begin with. He won't kill any additional drones, but I think he's quite happy, Nate. Losing the Stargate does suck a little bit, but if we can trust anybody to keep these Oracles alive for the rest of the game, I trust Neeb.
Yep, and the Oracles are going to come over here right as a few other drones finish. So the Spore is there, but gets a little bit of damage done.
Oh.
And one of the Oracles...
Oh my god, 1 HP. 4.
4 hit points. All right, get the adrenaline going at the start of this one. That was close. But
that's actually a really big deal, eh, Nate? Because obviously he lost the Stargate, so the moment he would lose one Oracle, you gotta be incredibly careful. And we know how annoying these stasis wards can be. If you can let a Protoss player like Neeb or Showtime keep these Oracles alive for the rest of the game, you're gonna have to worry about multiple stasises throughout the entirety of this game. So, very fortunate break there for Neeb.
And so he throws the Revelation towards the front. He's able to kill a creep tumor and that big glowing icon on the rocks as some of the Adepts shade towards the main base, but they will be canceled. The lair is just now beginning, as well as a Baneling nest. And looks like Neeb's mostly focused now on just revving up that third base with the Forge, the Twilight Council, the robotics facility, so he can begin to transition into whatever it is that he wants to do.
Yeah, he did a lot of economic damage, and obviously killing 7 drones early on is a much bigger deal than killing 7 drones 6 or 7 minutes into the game, because at that point Lambo can just produce 7 or 8 drones at once. So it definitely set Lambo back, but I don't feel like this game is over by any means, Nate. I don't really think that Neeb is going to be able to follow this up with something super scary. But while I say that, there is a War Prism on the way, and as long as these Oracles are alive, you got to worry about just War Prism and Gateway units by itself, because just Lings are not going to cut it.
No, especially if he brings the Oracles with them to help fry those Lings on top of the army, which we've seen a lot of Protoss players do. Templar Archives is going to rev up as the Twilight Council finishes. That +1 attack coming in, and an Observer to follow up the War Prisms. The Oracles are going to come by the natural expansion. They're looking for a few drones to grab. They're going to one-shot a couple of them, grab about 4 drone kills.
God.
Does lose one of the Oracles, and it just zooms away.
A little bit sloppy there. That was actually the Oracle that had full HP as well, so he's going to be incredibly careful with the other one. We do see a little bit of a War Prism rest here. Unfortunately, Adepts ain't that good against buildings, so he's not going to be able to get a cancel on that hatchery. I feel despite the fact that Lambo was completely caught off guard by that proxy Stargate and lost 7 drones, the rest of the game has been going pretty alright for him.
Oh, okay, so the Oracle swoops into the main base. He sees that the Hydralisk Den is now turning into a Lurker Den, and that is going to give him a bit more information. He needs to be very cautious about Lurker positioning, but he's already going into Charge Lot Immortal, potentially Archon, which is one of the ways that you can break that composition. The Adept drop comes into the main. He goes with the Stasis Trap.
Wow.
Denies a lot of drones from mining.
Well, that was pretty much as good as it's going to get.
That's quite the cheeky Stasis Trap, Roddy.
Yeah, it's like 7, 8, 9 drones there.
Yeah, he's that stops his production too, apparently. I didn't even know that. These Lings aren't even going to finish.
We see the Lurker then morphing even before Muscular Rockman, so he's really rushing into those Lurkers. Didn't even get the Hydro upgrade this game. Perhaps worried about that potential fight that we see oh so often on Abyssal, where Protoss will go through the rocks and then go through the other rocks. With a Wild Prism there, it's just going to be, you know, it's frustrating. Maybe Lambo feels that the early economic damage he did was just too hard to recover from, that he would much rather rush into Lurkers to make sure, A, he doesn't die, and then B, the moment he has Lurkers, hopefully for him, the Archon Immortal count ain't high enough, and then the Lurkers can actually get a favorable trade.
It's those high damage units that are incredibly important in these situations.
They're so slow, Nate. I'm not used to seeing these Hydras being that slow.
They're called muscular augments for a reason. He's got just some weak Hydras, man. They got to hit the gym.
A couple of Lings is being sacrificed there. Obviously, these Hydras could be morphed into Lurkers now.
10 Lurkers on the way. Okay.
3 Immortals, 2 Archons at the moment, but 2 more Immortals are on their way. And with 5 Immortals, like we saw it yesterday in one of the games that TLO played as well, was actually against Neeb. Whoa, that Spore Crawler is unrooted.
Why? What are you doing? The Spore Crawler's just chilling. Okay, well, now he's got a bunch of Zealots inside of his base. That's going to pull the whole army back, so forget about that Lurker attack.
Forget about that pre-Storm attack perhaps as well, because now there's a very good chance that Storm is going to finish up. These Zealots even spot the Lurkers, so just in case Neeb wasn't 100% sure yet, he's definitely very sure now. I don't really like where this is going for Lambo, because I think in the end he's going to have to go up against a ridiculous amount of Immortals and Storm. It will truly come down to engagements, obviously, but I think that Neeb is too good to take an awful fight into all these Lurkers.
I mean, he had the Revelation on the Lurkers, so he does have the opportunity to push through them. He has the Observer right on top. The Banelings are not done yet, so could not blast away the Zealots. However, yeah, there's still a lot of damage output coming from those Lurkers. He cleared out, it looked to be about half of them.
Yeah. Exactly half of them, actually. I think 5 of them got picked off, 5 of them remained. I mean, that was all right for Lambo. It really could have been a lot worse, because if those Veins didn't show up there, there's a good chance he ends up losing all of them. Because Lurkers are fantastic, but you really need to protect them. It needs to be hard for the Protoss to get in range of those Lurkers. And whether that is prevented by Lings, Banelings, or even Roaches or Hydras, it doesn't really matter. But something needs to keep those Immortals at bay.
Well, when a couple of Banelings run straight into a few Archons, cleared out quite quickly, Roddy.
Yeah. It's starting to look, I don't know. Like, if you take a look at the units lost resource tab, it just doesn't look that promising for Lambo. Lambo has lost 2,400 resources more than Neeb. And it's not like he's been a whole lot richer. It's not like he's been super cost-effective or supply-effective by any means. This is a terrifying Protoss army, and without Broodlords, it's pretty damn hard to deal with this.
Yep, he's pushing forward. These Banelings and Morphing, he has a chance to get on top of those. But there's the Photon Overcharge with the 3 Photon Cannons to defend against the Ling run by. He's going to continue to push forward just a little bit. The Lurkers are in position. They have burrowed. There's not a crazy number of Banelings here, but this is mostly a Mortal Archon, waiting for that wave of Zealots to hit the right side.
Yeah, actually.
And behind this, he goes for 2 more Stargates. He's getting his Fleet Bacon up, as well as that +3 attack upgrade.
Yeah, Neeb loves to play mass Skytoss as well, especially in the later phases of the game. Storm and Tempest is something he feels very comfortable with. We've seen it a lot in the past. Good job by Lambo, at least leaving a couple of units behind to deal with all these Zealots. But a big weapon in the main base as well. And I think we're looking at the beginning of the end here for Lambo, because there is just way too much for Neeb.
That army's just way too beefy. Pushes through the Lurkers. GG Neeb takes game number 1 in this best of 5.
It looked pretty convincing right now. Pretty much since the beginning. He surprised us with that proxy Stargate.
That Turbo Oracle is what they call it when it kills all your SCVs, Roddy, and the Zerg player got to feel the pain there. I do like that you mentioned the Adept Harass. He goes in, he tries to get a few cheeky drones while that Stargate's warping in the Oracle, and he starts those Spore Crawlers, because you're like, oh yeah, this is how you save the drones from getting killed, and it's like, well, should have let them finish.
If only he knew what we knew. That's one of these moments where, sometimes you rally your Overlord a little bit differently. And if he would have scouted it immediately, if you can shut it down before the first Oracle's even out, that's suddenly when Neeb would be in a lot of trouble. So it was definitely a little bit risky what Neeb did there. But, the execution was there. He did a really good job in keeping Lambo busy with an Adept. Lambo probably quite proud of his drone micro. He's like, this is all going fine. I'm not messing up. I'm not losing anything. But what he didn't know is that there was a Stargate on the way. Cheeky victory for game number 1. That cheese warning, Nate. I don't know how low it was, but it needs to go higher.
Well, he's definitely pulling out a couple of cheeky plays, as it were, to kick off day number 2 here. I like it out of a guy like Neeb. You mentioned it. He was ready to go for that super late game transition. When I think of Neeb and the games that I've watched him play over the last few months, I've seen quite a few of these very heavy Stargate compositions. I think a lot of Protoss players in general these days like being able to get up to those carriers if you're allowed to. They are pretty good, Roddy.
Yeah, there was this time, it already feels long ago, but it really wasn't that long ago, where everybody was just rushing into carriers, right?
Yep.
Where we even saw Neeb go for multiple 2-base carriers attempt, and from that point on, just make a bunch of cannons, slowly but steady, take your 3rd and then your 4th. That's not really in the meta anymore. But once you have 4 or 5 bases, and you can afford a Fleet Beacon, you can afford the multiple Stargates, and you already have Storm, carriers are still all right. The counter argument to that again is that I saw Cero play a couple of times, and Showtime mentioned this as well, where in the past, you feel like if you get carriers and Storm, the game is kind of supposed to be over. But they play against Cero, and the entire map is covered in creep, and there are 74 Spore Crawlers, and you're like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be making carriers here. But what should I actually make?
I've seen some weird things happen on maps like Honor Grounds where there's just a ridiculous number of bases that you can spread yourself out on. And it's one of those things where everybody kind of has their own way of dealing with it. Some players will try to take those ridiculous number of bases and throw a million corruptors in your face or hydralisks. And then you've got guys that will go for the neural parasite play with the infestors, which is also pretty awesome to watch when it works, but if it doesn't, then the carriers just instantly kill all of your infestors.
Yeah, I've seen multiple cool ways of potentially dealing with it, but then often I feel like you kind of rely on the Protoss messing up a tiny bit. I think the most legit way to deal with carriers or any sort of SkyToss composition is the ridiculous amount of spores. You know, it just seems very, very hard to truly get in the range, and even picking up 1 or 2 spores. If the Zerg had multiple bases running throughout the entirety of the game, that doesn't really change that much. Talking about a map, Nate, that could potentially see some SkyToss. We are loading into Proxima Station.
Yeah, Proxima Station, very large map. That pocket natural expand, the gold base right outside the rocks by the 3rd. All sorts of late game shenanigans can go down here. And as you can see, some of the other maps we have coming up ahead, Newkirk Precinct for the next game, Belshire Vestige if we get there, and Cactus Valley to finish things up.
Yep, Lambo was the one to veto Honor Grounds. Perhaps didn't want to go up against the Protoss that could have easy access to those 4 bases. While Neeb on the other end didn't want any part of Paladino, which I can't really blame him for, Nate.
Nope. Definitely a scary map to play on if you don't like games that last less than 5 minutes. In the top right position of Proxima Station, we have the blue Zerg player trailing 0-1 in this best of 5. He's the German Zerg. He's Lambo.
Already a fantastic run for this young man. He's here without a team, so he supported himself. He said making the money is the most important part. Well, Nate, he already made $2,500 for making it into the round of 16.
Getting that cash money. And his opponent in the bottom left, who made quite a bit of moolah in the last year of WCS. He's our Red Protoss player leading 1-0 from America. He's Neeb.
Very conservative opening so far from Neeb, going for that gateway and pylon. I think this is one of these maps where even you'll see the safest Protosses every now and then go Nexus first, just because you really don't have to worry about that many potential aggressive openings from the Zerg. But Neeb is going to be overly safe. Not only is it gateway, pylon, and gas, I believe, right? He also took a gas. Yep. He's even scouting with a probe as well. We do still see the Nexus being wiped in at 120, so it's not like this is super late or super strange, but I wouldn't have mind to see Neeb be a tiny bit more, perhaps greedy.
It's difficult to get into the main base, right, without using something like a drop, because it is just that direct choke point. But
and we saw yesterday in one of the games, I think there was Showtime, right, against Tootming. Like how good these Protoss players are. It's so funny, because if that happens to you, you're like, okay, I can actually deal with this link flood, right? Like, I've got an Oracle, I'm going to make a Void Ray, I'm going to shut the front down, I'm going to warp in a couple of adepts, and you're like, okay, I know I'm going to lose some probes, but I think I can do this. And Showtime is just like, this is actually never going to work, you know? He just made a bunch of adapts, photon overcharge, go up to 3 bases.
And he even let the Lings going straight through the front door as well. It's just like, actually, no, now I can kill them all.
Yeah, like I would like to do this. Please surround my adapts, because I'm going to shade away, but I'm covering these adapts with photon overcharge. I really don't think that Lambo is the type of Zerg to go for a build like that. Maybe once in a best of 5, but I'm not expecting it to see it here on Proxima.
All right, well, the Overlord comes up. Sees that front ramp. Nothing out of the ordinary there. An Adept is going to finish up for Neeb, so he knows, okay, nothing to worry about. That's going to kill my Overlord. And a Stargate pops up in the back of the main base. So he's not hiding it. He's not putting it out on the map, Kev. Do you like this for Oracle still?
Yeah, most likely. I think we're looking at something very similar to the previous game. A couple of Adepts without resonating glaives, and then 2 Oracles. Obviously, he could go Oracle Void Ray if he feels like he's being pressured by anything silly like Link Flood, Link Drop, or Roach Rush. But since that is not really Lambo style at all, I'm expecting the 2 Oracles here. I would love to see some Phoenixes, don't get me wrong, Nate. You know, I love my Phoenix, and I think Phoenix gameplay is always beautiful to watch. But I think it's just going to be good old Oracles.
All right, well, Stargate is finishing up. The Adept gets a drone in the natural. And there is that Oracle on the way. Continuing to pump out just a few of the Adepts behind this. He does see the Stargate with the Overlord, so Lambo knows what's going on. I would not be surprised, Roddy, if we saw a couple of Spore Crawlers, something like that, go down to help make sure that this Oracle doesn't get damaged. Or maybe he'll keep his Queens in a good spot.
That is actually a relatively fast Twilight console, so there is a good chance that he's going for the regular sort of soft gateway pressure, but that he's also going to rush out one of these upgrades out of the Twilight, because this is a little bit weird. We see a Phoenix after the Oracle, and that Phoenix only tells me one thing. He wants to kill the Overlords and pretend like nothing is going on, but there is a good chance that we see, and I'm going to quote Le Todd here, l'explosion de gate, which means a lot of gateways, Nate.
All right, well, there's one thing that we know Neeb definitely likes to do. It's a big adept play, but after that nerf, I'm not quite so sure how he'll go about it. The Oracle loses all of his shields pretty fast, poking towards that front base, but teeters in towards the pocket expand, and there is nothing there. There's also a Spore inside of the main base, so he cannot go anywhere. There we go, Resonating Glaives with the third Nexus. Follow-up for Neeb.
Yeah, and that one Phoenix. This could also be a big mind game. Maybe Neeb wants to freak Lambo out and pretend that this is happening, because Lambo's obviously not crazy, right? He wasn't born last night, Nate. He's like one Oracle into a Phoenix, and you want to tell me you're just going to use that Phoenix to deny the Overlords, but there is nothing for me to worry about? Obviously, Lambo is going to worry about this a little bit. I truly wonder what we'll see out of Neeb. If Neeb is going to commit to these Resonating Glaives, we're going to see 7, 8, 9 gateways, or if this is kind of like one big mind game.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a couple of choices. I think the only thing that still weirds me out a little bit when I look at that setup is with the Baneling Nest coming in, these Lings, the +1 melee. He can warp in those Adepts if he really wants to, but there's no Warp Prism or anything like that. The Robo's just begun, so the offensive warp-in potential is very limited. He needs to do a lot with, you know, just what he has. He won't have a lot of reinforcement capability.
That's a lot of Adepts though, Nate. Somehow, Neeb was able to squeeze out 12 Adepts, and with Resonating Glaives finishing up, if the Banelings are not ready yet, this is actually very hard to deal with. Lambo is going up to 4 bases, so I actually think it would be alright for these Adepts to just try to kill that 4th base. The shade back and forth, this is not a shade you want to let finish up. But I think these Adepts with Resonating Glaives, they can start working on this hatchery. He does know there is a 4th hatchery on the way, right? He doesn't know. I think if Neeb would know, Nate, I think he would settle for that.
Yeah, I think you could go get that quite easily, throw the shades to the left.
Oh man, that's a mistake.
Gets a couple shots, but yeah, I also heard that he tried to get that creep tumor with the Revelation and he missed it, so he wasn't able to deny this creep that's out towards the front, and Lambo can just keep chilling. The creep helps a lot and pokes a bit again. There's another Revelation. He really did want to get that tumor.
Has to be careful there. You don't want to get these Adepts surrounded by the Zerglings, because then the Banelings can get the connections they're looking for. Obviously, because the layer was a little bit late, these Banelings don't have speed yet. You got to be careful with your lonely Phoenix there. He does. Now he spots that 4th base, and I really feel this was a big missed opportunity for Neeb. I think he easily could have sent his Adepts to the right side, get a cancel on that hatch, or at least force Lambo to come all the way out, and then he could still shade into, you know, the natural 3rd base, whatever you want to call it, and get a whole bunch of drones, and you can always shade back and forth.
Yep, he has the Warp Prism headed towards the north side of the map as he gets the Templar Archives, +1 attack and charge. Starts up that 4th Nexus. And quite a few gateways. So the Oracle comes over to this fresh base. Okay, okay, nice way to handle this, realizing, okay, well, there's no spores here yet. Forces a lot of those drones to go and into hiding here as spore crawlers. And he's at energy. Okay, so Oracle's going to back off. So most of those spores will get canceled, and life will continue as usual. Templar are being warped in. Psionic Storm is being researched. You can get that big, beefy late-game Protoss tech. As his Adepts harassing in the main base, not getting a crazy amount of damage done, but the Prism is there to scoop him up and fly away.
There are 2 Dropalords on the map. I actually did not know that. They're over here in the natural. I wonder what he's going to do with that. I'm taking a look at the queen count. We're currently looking at 5 queens, so I think it's going to be a bunch of Bane.
Some Bane rain.
Could be just try to drop this on top of the Protoss army, and he's actually going to go for it. The Warp Prism takes a lot of damage. It will not fall. So these Adepts are actually going to be very frustrating for Lambo to deal with. Lambo wants to start attacking. Baneling speed is almost done. +2 attack is almost done. He doesn't want to worry about this Warp Prism anymore, Nate. He's running across the map. Neeb knows it. Neeb has a couple of sentries and High Templars, so that's going to be cool. It will all come down to, will these Overlords get the connections that they're looking for?
Yeah, that drop has to be so on point, and a lot of it depends as well if you can pull him out towards this area between the 3rd and the 4th. He's got a lot of Banelings. Here come the Lynx. He's going to morph even more right in front of his face. There's the Oracle coming back as well. The overcharges begin to hit, and he needs to realize what's going on. He's jumping a stasis trap on top of his own army to help lock a few of these down. Not going to get a lot, but the Banelings come crashing through the storm. Hits a lot of them, though, Roddy. But there are the Overlords coming up On top, another pylon overcharge. He wants to drop behind this. He could go for the probes. The splits begin, but the production's still running. 16 probes cleared out, and the entire mineral line at the third destroyed.
Yeah, and the fort base is actually quite exposed, so a few more banelings roll in. Unfortunately for Lambo, he detonates all of them on those 3 zealots or adepts, whatever it was. He might still get closer. This is baneling with +2, so it can one-shot Fork.
Hero Oracle picks off at least a few of the banelings, buys him a little bit of life for those probes, but
wow.
Talk about an engagement and another wave of banelings getting ready to crash on into Neeb's expansions.
Really well done, because it was not easy to attack Neeb there.
Drone? What are you doing?
Drone has a dream. Manor hatchery, perhaps. Quicker reinforcements, Nate. A couple of Archons are a little bit exposed there. One photon overcharge is good, but it's probably not going to save this army as the banelings come crashing in as well. And Lambo is looking really good here in game number 2.
Yeah, just absolutely swarming over this army.
Wow.
GG, Lambo ties the series up 1-1.
That was a really solid game, but I still think that the key moment in this game was that Neeb did not get a cancel on that fourth hatchery. I think if he gets it, you slow down the production. You could have forced out maybe even more units. I think Neeb not sending a Phoenix to the right side, not using those adepts with resonating glaives. Like I said in the previous game, adepts are not good against buildings. They're obviously not, but with resonating glaives, and if you have 12 adepts, it's very easy to force a cancel on that fort base.
Yeah, he wasn't able to capitalize on the position that he was trying to take outside of that third base location. The Revelation tagged one creep tumor and an Overlord. It did not tag the creep tumor next to the Overlord. He barely missed it. So he still had all of this room to play with, to move his queens around, bring the Zerglings and the banelings out faster, and maybe made him a little scared to try and do anything else with it. And because of that, well, he wasn't really able to pick up that much momentum, Roddy.
I mean, in a way, Protoss is not that different than Zerg. Because with Zerg, we always say, you know, you don't want to make too many units if you don't need them. You don't want to just make a bunch of, let's say, roaches early on if you don't get anything done with them because you're putting yourself behind. Protoss not that different, Nate. If you make 12 adepts with resonating glaives, you need to get some sort of return of investment out of that, because just having them in your army later on is not going to make the difference against Lynx and Banes with +2. They are pretty damn good against adepts, especially since, you know, the HP nerf went through. So Neeb just, you know, he invested in all those adepts in the resonating glaives, didn't get anything done with it, and we're all tied up loading into Newkirk Precinct. And I think that Lambo's probably feeling quite confident, because game number 1, obviously you can pinpoint down to not scouting that proxy oracle, but game 2 was just, yeah, pretty solid.
I think that's winning a game in a situation like that will give Lambo the confidence boost that he needs to make this next game, I would dare say, even better. It should be very back and forth, very even, and we can see that what he's brought to the table for this weekend of WCS Austin has been something a little bit stronger than we've come to expect from him. In the southeast position here, he is tied up 1-1. Representing Germany, he is Lambo.
Already won a Meisterschaft, Nate.
Winning the Meisterschaft, quite an echelon of achievements in Germany. His opponent in the southwest, the red Protoss player representing Ting in the United States of America. Give it up for Neeb.
We've said it many times, obviously a Casper Cup champion, Neeb, trying to make another deep run here at Austin. Had a great run last year. Loved the semifinals that he played back then against Snoot. Even loved the finals, Nate. I think often when people think back of finals, they're always like, I don't exactly remember. I think everybody remembers those Void Rays, right? On the Invader, I think the map is called, the brown one. It's like, no, Neeb, you did it. You hang in there. And then he just overcommitted a little bit. Back then, he was definitely a lot less experienced than he currently is. And I think it's safe to say that the Neeb of 2017 wouldn't make the same mistakes as the Neeb of 2016. But the game has changed. Back then, it was all about the lurker push, get a couple of disruptors out, and Neeb was just incredibly good at that, and he never died. Obviously, right now, we're looking at a very different version of Protoss with Zerg.
It's always fun to watch the meta game flip around. Lambo brings the other drone down. He looked around his natural, just like, please, no cannons, nothing, don't. No, so he's safe. He knows it's all good. And Neeb is, you know, he's also playing a pretty economic opening as well.
Can see that he did his homework. Obviously, you know, the Germans will always talk with each other, and Lambo will go to TLO and be like, you played against Neeb, right? So what did he do? And then, you know, Dario will obviously tell in detail that he got cannon rushed on Newkirk Precinct, that it wasn't the world's greatest cannon rush. He would probably add that too. I think there's a good chance, Nate, that we're going to see a different opening out of Neeb here. I'm not saying that Stargate isn't good on Newkirk, because I do think it is. But I also think this is a map where the Protosses, in general, they love their Archon drop. I think there is a very good chance that we're going to see the Archon drop on this map, as Neeb will probably feel very comfortable if he can just get a whole bunch of Immortals and Archons out later on.
Yeah, I can definitely see it. That drop has the insane potential. I think we talked about this yesterday as well in that Showtime series against Tudming, where he basically just demolished him. The Dark Templar were able to get damage in. The Archon drop did well as well. But it is going to be that Stargate to kick things off. And I think we've seen he's been favoring that Oracle.
Yeah. Super fast Stargate. I think he even started it before Warpgate. The moment the Cyber Corporal's done, he just wiped it in immediately. Every second could make the difference between an Oracle showing up and a Spore Crawler being like 80% done or actually being completely finished. But this is a very wide open natural. This is quite risky. Oh, okay, good job there. Picking up that Link. So Lambo's still a little bit in the dark. Oh, we saw this yesterday. You can get punished for this. I think it was Drogo, right, who got Link flooded by a Zerg. I forgot which one it was, but...
Be very careful with the way that you want to play this out. The Stargate is ready. The Oracle is on the way. And the Overlord will spot it. He knows. He has caught vision of the Stargate. Should have a good idea of what's coming his way. This Adept Shade going into the natural expansion and canceled at the last second. Does feel weird. You look at the Adept Shade run in, you're like, oh, what does it see? But it doesn't really see anything unless it bumps straight into it.
Pretty fast evolution chamber. It could just be for +1, but we could also perhaps see one drop alert later on. I actually love, and I've said this many times, and I'm starting to see it more and more in my own games and some of the professional games as well. You don't want to link drop immediately. You want to start link dropping by the time that Warp Gate is done and you see the first round of Warp Pins outside of the Protoss natural wall. Then if you drop 7, 8 links in the main, it could be fantastic. But while I'm talking about that, we see that the first Phoenix is on the way. And the Phoenix will obviously deny any sort of Overlords nearby the main base of Neeb. So I don't think he has to worry too much.
Nope, that Oracle not able to get anything done at the start of this game. Just a single drone kill at the third base and forced to move away. Resonating Glaives is the next choice for Neeb, however. So big Adept play once again, Roddy.
Yep. He also only took 3 gases so far. I wonder if that means anything. I wonder if we're going to see him just wipe in that Nexus now. Obviously, he wants to make sure that it's not being delayed by some sort of Overlord drop creep. 16 links are on the way for Lambo. Lambo sees these Adepts moving out. Glaives ain't done yet. This is kind of a weird moment to move out, Nate, because this is a little bit of both, right? It's like the not resonating Glaives push, but at the same time, Glaives are on the way. So he's forcing out a couple units, keeping Lambo honest, forcing him to make a lot of links early on. But at the same time, he has to be very careful, because losing these Adepts could get very painful.
Yep, he used the Oracle with its Pulsar Beam above the Adepts to help clear the Zerglings off of them, but he doesn't want to lose the Oracle to the Queens, and he has to back out. A couple of the Adepts are able to shade away, but very solid defense there from Lambo, especially considering that Resonating Glaives is about to finish.
Yeah, losing 3 Adepts, and one of the Adepts took a lot of damage as well. I'm not too sure if that went as good for Neeb as he would have liked, but what he did achieve is that he forced Lambo to make a lot of units. I mean, all this stuff, it looks so easy, right? You're looking at these games, you're like, oh yeah, that's just a regular PvZ, but it is really difficult to always be this active, put a lot of pressure on a Zerg like Lambo, because if you don't do it, well, obviously, economically, they're going to be quite far ahead, because Zerg can produce workers like no other race.
Yep,
wow, that's a weird shade. We saw a very weird shade there. It's kind of a forward shade. In the end, not that many links died because the Oracle's still there as well. And this time, Resonating Glaives have finished up, and the Banelings were not ready yet, Nate.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to shade straight up into the natural expansion as well. Just wants to clear out those links. He's getting ahead of where the Banelings are going to be. The Queens trying to push them together. The Banelings are coming. Is he going to go for the focus fire? No. And Neeb, a little bit uncharacteristic here, just eats those Baneling shots, shades towards the 4th, but took a lot of the wind out of his sails there from those few Banelings that were able to get those connections.
How many Adepts have fallen in this game so far? Can we take a look at that? 11 Adepts for 46 links. Now, obviously, the number 46 seems very high, but in general, that's not really a trade that you're that happy with, especially not because Lambo actually has a good economy. He's going to get the last 3 Adepts as well. No cancel on that 4th base, obviously. Really not that many dead drones. I think that Lambo is all right with how this went. The only thing I'm a little bit worried about, Nate, is that he's down 8-9 workers, but he's working on that.
He has to pull that together. I mean, he produced a lot to be able to get into this position. However, there's not a whole lot that Neeb can do with what he has on the field right now. The Oracle kind of follow these units around. It's like, okay, yeah, you can't hit me, but I really don't have a whole lot to deal with this. Just a couple of sentries. He actually warps in a few more Adepts now because his charge is still very far away, and he's trying to get back into that Immortal Archon charge lot setup.
There's a few banelings rolling in the middle of the map. They're like, don't shoot, don't shoot. There's really no need, you know.
We'll go away. It's okay.
We are of no harm of any Protoss right now.
We didn't mean to come onto your property, sir.
Once again, we see the two Dropper Lords morphing in, well, kind of the low ground turret.
He's getting Overlord speed as well.
Yep, so it's very similar to what we saw in the last game. Baneling speed finishing up, +2 melee finishing up. And we're going to see a very similar attack, Nate, and there is a good chance that this time it hits even a little bit faster. Once again, the drone. Same drone.
Same drone from last game.
Yeah, and this is a smaller map than Proxima, so there is a good chance that this time it will hit before Storm. Because I also don't see a Warp Prism being annoying, right?
Nope,
like, there's no Warp Prism buying time.
He's not going to randomly get hit with 4 Adepts in the back of his base.
I mean, at least there's going to be a couple of stasis wards, but this is going to be rough, man. I think this is a very, very difficult hold for Neeb. And this is obviously a timing that Lambo is starting to feel very comfortable with.
Yeah, he's got everything on the way, but it's just not ready yet. Psionic Storm still about 80% done. The Overlords are getting ready. They've loaded up on the Banelings. A large number of Lings are going to try to head towards the north side. Those Zealots have not knocked down the wall yet, and they are going to be attacked. Going for the 4th cancel and getting ready to make this big push.
Just getting the fort would be nice. I mean, there's just a bunch of Lings there. There's a cannon as well, but obviously the fight near the turret base is going to be more important. It has to be careful because there are a couple of stages where Storm is done.
Yeah, he was able to finish it up, and he needs to get a couple of really big ones. Hits about half the hit points on those Lings. The stasis ward triggers on 2 Zerglings.
I feel like there was a Storm there that he could have landed. That could have connected maybe with like 20 Banelings.
Yep.
And that would have definitely taken the wind out of these sails of the push of Lambo. Right now, it's still around, but obviously every second that goes by is a good second for Neeb, because that means more energy on the Mothership Core, more energy on the Oracle, and more Storms to work with as well.
Banelings help break down the rocks as these Zealots clean up the rest of the Zerglings towards that 4th base. And with those Zealots, okay, should be able to defend that nice and fine. But Lambo's follow-up here is going back into the Hydralisks. He's getting the ranged upgrades. He's getting the muscular augments. And a lot of this has to come down to the Sonic Storm upgrade being done. Is he actually has the ability to push back these giant waves of clumped up forces. And is that Phoenix going to run into the Banelings? Yep. Okay. Baneling Overlord should not be able to go towards Neeb's base.
I mean, and in the end, Neeb actually did an excellent job there, because I was incredibly worried about the similar attack that Lambo was about to hit. And I felt that perhaps this time it could have even been more deadly. But I think the Sim City at his port base, by protecting that cannon that much, really made Neeb's life a little bit easier and just made it kind of awkward for Lambo to engage. Because Lambo obviously didn't want to fight in double or triple photon overcharge.
Nope.
So, well done by our American Protoss.
You don't want to throw all your Banelings into a gateway to get on top of the cannon either. So.
Nope.
The Archons push forward, denies a couple of these morphing Banelings, and Neeb looking for an opportunity, it would seem. His Prism is just about done. It's not ready yet. Making its way over towards the battlefield now. He does need that ability to reinforce. I think if he wants to take a big fight. Oh, some Bane Rain coming in, trying to get the sentries, not able to do so.
There are still 30 Banelings on the map. But Lambo's starting to be a little broke. He's quite low on gas. He's morphing 14 additional Banelings, getting a few additional Drop Lords as well. Because obviously the only way the Banelings are truly going to get close to these High Templars is by dropping it on top of them, as Neeb is probably too good to leave them exposed in the middle.
Yeah, it's an insane amount of Banelings that he's been playing around with. And we have, once again, the transition, double Stargate, Fleet Beacon, getting ready to make that transition, most likely to the carriers. But denies a good couple of these morphing Banes. However, does he have enough to stop this? The army looks like it wants to collapse. He's pulling back in just the last second. He's spread out for a great arc. Wants to deny that expansion, but at the same time, a big Zealot Warp inside of the main base of Lambo, ripping and tearing into that main.
And that is massive, because Lambo's pretty broke, actually. So losing drones is really going to hurt him. This could be a very game-ending push. Is it enough?
Beautiful force field protecting the High Templar from those Banelings as they eat that AoE damage. Getting a couple of shots on the probes, but a lot of these big expensive units still standing strong for Neeb as the Zealots continue to rip and tear into that hive.
That was a great hold by Neeb. He almost made it look easy there, and the big problem with making that many Banelings is once they're gone, Nate, and you have no bank, what are you going to follow this up with? Just a couple of Hydras, just a couple of Zerglings? Look at that one Archon survive with 1 HP. What a champ.
That actually just doesn't. That's not a thing. That almost never happens. I don't think I've ever seen an Archon with 1 hit point.
I don't think I've seen it either. Especially because they look so in the red already, you know, because they only have 10 HP.
They only have 10 health normally.
Yeah. I don't know how it happened, but it happened. And with +3 finishing up and these Stargates, and Neeb sitting very comfortably on 4 bases now, I think it's safe to say that the American Protoss is looking incredibly good here on Newkirk. As I was quite worried for him from time to time, but the Lambo just never truly had the economy he was going for, and I feel that the first push is the most important one. And when he didn't get a kill on the fort and he really didn't get the trades he was looking for either, it already felt like it was going to be pretty hard to crack Neeb.
Yep, and he gets another revelation tag on the army. The War Prism is back inside of the main base, trying to get the Zealots up. Hydras want to focus fire it down, but the Zealots do finish, which means they should be able to get on top of a lot of these units. Keep in mind, as soon as he loses this position, his Hive is also under threat. And that's a big tech play for him. The Hydra Bane army trying to get on top of the Immortals, lead the charge. He's got plenty of Psionic Storm, plenty of Archons that AoE. And he's just going to knock that base down. Says, yeah, nothing to worry about. Mothership on the way, 3 carriers on the way, and not a lot to deal with them. Graviton, Catapult, revving up as well.
It's really fun to play out these games where you know you're super far ahead, but you're like, you know, technically I could still throw this away. As Lambo's gonna make one last desperation attack, but he's eating some big storms.
And those storms on the Hydras, rip and tear. GG, Neeb goes up 2-1 against Lambo.
Neeb looking very good there, very solid game. Wasn't easy, because there was one point when you look at the amount of banelings, you're like, God, that's 45, 50 banelings. You know, if you messed up once, that could very well be the end. Things could snowball. But also being annoying with that War Prism, I think, was excellent. Once again, buying some time, cutting off the reinforcements. And Lambo was just not that rich. If you play this style, as a Protoss player, the worst thing in the world is that, you know, you defend against 30, 40 banelings, and a minute later, there's 40 banelings again. Lambo never had the economy to do that.
It's been heating up here in Austin, Texas. Let's hear what the boys at the desk have to say about the series so far.
Yes, it has. Thank you very much, Nathanius, as we do have quite the series on our hands so far. A good series, able to show that Lambo is able to roll with the punches that Neeb's throwing at him.
Yeah, a little bit. I think the harass from Neeb has been really, really strong, though. He is up 2-1 in the series so far. And Lambo keeps going back to the Hydra Baneling composition. We saw some Lurkers, too, pretty ineffectively. So I wonder if he's almost being thrown for a loop here, Todd, and wondering if he has to change it up going into game number 4.
Well, the thing is, though, it feels like he's maybe going to be a little bit limited. Like, I was even just now speaking about Namshar about a match of a few Showtime, and like, well, what do you know about him? Do you see any weaknesses? And he's like, well, you know, like, he's a bit predictable, but he's just so good and playing the best style that it doesn't really matter. And I feel like it might be the same case here up against the Neeb, who's just quite solid with his style.
Feels like Lambo has to kind of hit something before the Immortal Archon High Templar really starts rolling, because once Neeb feels there, he looks so comfortable to then transition on to potential carriers, which he hasn't even needed in these games.
Yeah, he's been very surgical, keeping that War Prism alive, harassing the main, and then just, you know, when his oracles are out, they do so much. If they're not revealing everything, they're at least getting drone kills. And it used to be the standard was like the initial oracle has to kill 9 drones. Then we're like, okay, a success. We're kind of having that redefined where it's like, nope, it kills 2 or 3 maybe, but it's going to be around forever, killing 2 or 3 for a long time.
Just like the DTs, man. Once upon a time, they had to win the game right out. When are we going to get to a point where like you have mass carriers and void rays and it's like, no, actually, you know, like it's far from over.
One day in the future, 2019, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe.
Todd, you were in Tooming versus Cyril for a while. I think that's concluded.
Yes, Cyril took it 3-0. In those games, I don't think that Tooming was in a droning up mood. He just kept on making units, throwing them at Cyril, and every time Cyril, he reacted perfectly. He just had a few more drones than Tooming, was able to hold on, was able to scout everything that was coming his way. Great reactions throughout. On Newkirk, there was one of the attacks that I think was really scary at some point.
Yeah.
He was like, you know what? 4 spine crawlers are going to finish by the time you get there. It's going to be slow roaches crossing the map anyway, and a very solid win for Cyril, who looked very good against the Tooming, who I think is quite good himself. So good things on the horizon for Cyril for sure.
Yeah.
I'm now in a new series. It's IA Sonu up against Special. And IA Sonu actually won the first game. They both kind of flexed their macro muscles, and he kind of overwhelmed him at some points with just too many units. And special, I was going to say the other words, had to tap out.
Yeah.
And actually, ooh, maybe we can jump in. I didn't look for 1 second, and I look on my screen, it's like 20 SCVs died. So maybe we can look at game number 2 here. We're on Belcher Vestige. Special went for a quick third command center. He made a bunch of Ravens, but he just got attacked and lost 21 SCVs, as you can see here. So he's not going to have the best of starts in this game. Behind this, IA can drone up quite easily. He's got Lair on the way, so that was just quick status report here on this game number 2.
If Ayasanu takes that series and he goes up against Serral, Serral at the moment in Zerg versus Zerg seems really on form, so who knows what could happen there.
He's the last Chinese too. Like there was supposed to be 4 Chinese. Cyan didn't make it there. Time lost in the previous group stage to True and Snoots, and we just lost Toonming, so IA the last Chinese hope.
All right, well, thank you very much, gents. Check in with you in just a moment's time. For now, we're going to go head back over to the commentary desk for game number 4 between Neeb and Lambo.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your wonderful, lovely analysis of this series. Kev, I'm glad we have such a nice back and forth best of 5 to kick things off.
Yeah, it's a solid start of the day. I mean, this should be a really fun day. Nate already said it before. We're going to have 8 best of 5s here on the main stage, 4 best of 5s of the round of 16. And we're also doing the quarterfinals today. So obviously, we're due for some fantastic StarCraft. I really love that update there by Todd. He's like, Major just lost 20 SCVs. He's not going to have a great time.
Drops 5
mules, like, woof. I was like, wow, I actually think he's going to have a really good time.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into game number 4 in the bottom right position. The blue Zerg player on his last leg in this series. He needs to take this map. He is Lambo.
Obviously, already a great run for this young German player. He's only 21 years old, Nate. Getting 300 WCS points, getting $2,500. It's nice, but Lambo wants more. But he's going to have to overcome this man, and we all know that ain't easy.
It is not. The American hope, the Red Protoss in the northwest of Belcher Vestige. He is Neeb.
It's quite interesting to still see this many adapts and see so much adapt play after they recently underwent a nerf. Now, of course, there will always be people saying like, well, 10 HP, how much is 10 HP truly? It's still a pretty big deal.
The first game I played after the adept nerf, some guy just came in, warped 7 in my base, and they still kill stuff.
Yeah, of course. No, adapts is still great, and I actually think the first day that the nerf went through and I played a couple of games, it was quite funny because it seemed like Zergs thought like, well, they have 10 HP less, maybe I can just defend with links.
Nope.
And then if you fight adapts in a choke point, it's like, nope, that's absolutely not the case. Adapts are still very good units. But yeah, we still see plenty of it. And even though I felt that Lambo has been dealing with it all right, he still looks at a 2-1 deficit in this series. And you know, Nate, I still think this is a run that Lambo's already very happy with. I'm sure that he's proud of himself. It's almost admirable that he paid his own trip here because he didn't qualify through Challenger, and he paid off his own money to get here. He's like, I want to finish at least top 32 so I can make the money back that I invested coming here. Well, he got more than that. He already got $2,500. But I still think that Lambo deep down inside would like more for once, because he is good. He's one of the absolute best European Zergs there is. He may not be Nurcho or Snoot, and he doesn't have their accomplishments or Serral, but he's right behind that. He just doesn't have any land performances to truly back that up. And I feel right now you're kind of close, right? Like a round of 16. Imagine you advance here, and then in the quarterfinals, you play a matchup that perhaps you like. I think that would be, well, actually that might be Showtime, so I'm not sure if anybody would like that. But it just feels like it's good for Lambo, but it's not good enough yet. That's kind of how I look at it.
If you want people to respect you as much as they do these other guys, the big titans of Europe and guys like Neeb, you need to show up to these tournaments and make these deep runs. As you said, he's certainly gotten pretty far, but winning this series, bringing this back would be huge for Lambo.
Yep. Not just today, but would just be huge for his career. And that would be that one performance that we always bring up. It's like, you remember Lambo, DreamHack Austin? Right now, we'll probably talk about it too. Like, he was pretty solid in Austin. But that's how we call his run, Top 16 is solid. I think Lambo is kind of done with being solid. I think Lambo wants something that's great. Obviously, turning this one around would be fantastic. But it's going to be hard, man. He's down 2-1. We're in Belcher Vestige, obviously. Once again, it was Stargate, Oracle. A little bit of that pressure.
Yep, and there's the evolution chamber, so we might still see that focus on the melee upgrades, maybe the drops as the game progresses forward. And of course, with the spores, the Oracle shouldn't be able to do too much. I do like Neeb's use of the Oracle. I like that he throws a stasis ward around. You know, he uses the Revelation. This is how the unit is really meant to be used outside of the just killing all of your workers capacity. It has a lot of utility.
It's funny, the only game where he went double Oracle was the game on Abyssal, where he proxied, and all the other games he went single Oracle into the Phoenix follow-up.
I feel like you gotta commit hard though if you do proxy or Stargate. You know,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Wow,
Oh,
the
wow.
Oracle finds a couple
That
of drones.
rally though,
Yeah.
that hurts. Well, he certainly wasn't expecting that, and all of a sudden, all those spore crawlers did not quite do the job that you
Wow.
would have been hoping that they would do.
Oh my God, he somehow gets another
Laying
one.
with fire,
6
six
drones.
drones. He forced like four spores to go up and then had to be canceled.
Yeah, that's
what
a
he wants.
very sweet start, because there are many scenarios where you actually almost don't kill anything. And obviously, Lambo took a lot of damage from the Oracle, so right now he's not too worried about anything else. He's just like, okay, I really need to get those drones back as soon as possible. And suddenly there's quite a few adepts here. These adepts don't have resonating glaze, but then losing 3, 4, 5 additional drones would be very painful here, and there's a good chance that's going to happen.
Yep, he's already cleared out a few of them. 4 drones killed now, running around this base, throws out the shade. There's not a lot of Zerglings to deal with these. Maybe the Queens can focus on one of these adepts. Nope, they all make it out.
Man, this is a flawless game so
And then
far
the
by
Oracle
Neeb.
just shows up like, sup.
Literally flawless. Let's take a look at the unit's lost resource tab real quick. Nothing died for Neeb other than a cancel. 10 drones,
Nice.
6 links, 2 overlords, and obviously he forced out a bunch of units as well. Now these links trying to get the wraparound, more dead units for Lambo. Game number 4 is not looking good for a German Zerg at all, Nate.
Absolutely not. Phoenix is dancing around, looking for overlords, trying to find something to push away. He's got the Robo coming in, 4 more gateways, saturated third base, resonating glaives. I mean, everything's coming up aces.
Yeah, he's getting 6 extra gates. Neeb obviously picking up on the fact that this game has gone fantastic for him. Hasn't lost any of those adapts like in the previous games. And actually got a very decent return of investment where he killed a bunch of drones, forced out a whole bunch of units, and he didn't end up losing anything. He still hasn't lost a unit. He has killed 27 units so far. He hasn't lost one yet. That's amazing.
Beautiful, Roddy. The Zerglings are going to get that surround though and finally kill off a few of these adepts with the Banelings. He should actually clear them all out. And the Oracles, though, still alive. 13 kills so far on that bad boy.
Well, that was really good for Lambo, and that's definitely something that Lambo needed, because with all those extra gateways finishing up, there's a good chance we're going to see a Warp Prism and nothing but adepts being wiped in on the other side of the map. This is obviously something we saw very often in the previous patch. It's really important Lambo picks up on this, but how on earth is he supposed to pick up on it when the Phoenix is killing the Overlords, when he's busy defending, and he obviously has no eyes in the main base of Neeb, and all the other games it was just Archon Immortal, Archon Immortal, Archon Immortal. How is he suddenly supposed to know that this is not Archon Immortal, but it's adepts, and a lot of them?
It's going to be very interesting to see how he progresses forward with this. Without the you know, the charged zealots and all that jazz, it is a more harass focus in terms of the workers and picking up these lighter units. So I'm interested to see where he's able to go with this. He has that prism. I think he's getting. Is he getting another one, or does he just have one?
No, I think that's the second prism.
Okay.
Oh my god, that's so many adapts. There's only 3 Banelings on the map currently. I think Neeb's gonna probably let this shade finish it up. I want to say, hoping that the adapt count wasn't ready yet. Look at the amount of adapts that Neeb currently has. He's standing on creep, so he's absolutely revealing his hand. Lambo's throwing up multiple spines. Lambo knows all he needs to do is survive, because you can transition out of it. But how do you survive against 35 adapts of Neeb?
He needs these Baneling hits to be 100% perfect. These splits, pretty solid so far, though, and teleports at just the right time. He needs to kill them.
Oh.
Great Baneling connections for Lambo, however. Peels off a decent chunk of these forces as that 4th base finishes up. I believe the Prism is getting its next warp in on the right side as the Adept shade over. He's in the main, he's in the natural, he's in the 3rd. And, well, Lambo is taking a beating, Roddy.
Yeah, somehow he's still at 59 drones. I have no idea how he's done that. A couple of adapts do get blown up there by the Banelings as well, but Neeb's army is just too big, and there's adapts all over the place.
That's a lot of adepts, Cav. He's just continuing to swarm over him. Neeb hath become Zerg, the master of units. GG, a 3-1 victory.
Good old adapts, mate. They still have it. I like the way that Neeb built this up, though. Really, he's playing into the series, right? Multiple times. He follows it up with a Phoenix, where the first game you're kind of worried about maybe in our lane. It's like, no, it's just Archon Immortal. Then again, Oracle Phoenix, it's just Archon Immortal, it's just Archon Immortal. Until that moment where you think like, it's just going to be Archon Immortal, right? Well, it's not. It's 35 adapts, and if you have 3 banelings, it's just too late.
Yep, just a big power play by Neeb to close the series out with a ton of adepts. Let's hear from the man himself on the main stage with Smix.
Thank you very much, Nathanius. Congratulations, Neeb. You are through to the quarterfinals here in WCS Austin. And yesterday when I spoke with you, I mentioned that recently you were on a 35-game win streak. Now, the only loss you had was to Lambo. So does it feel even better to take down the player who ruined what could have been a perfect record?
Yeah, I definitely remember that. It was a Corsair Cup tournament match, and I was pretty sad because normally I make it to the normally the finals in those tournaments. So he knocked me out in the semifinals, I think. So that was pretty frustrating. So yeah, I'm glad I got revenge.
Well, in this series against Lambo, you looked very, very dominant. But let's talk about the one map where it didn't go in your favor. It was on Proxima Station Game 2. Were you just not prepared for the Ling Bane timing he came at you with?
I actually scouted it pretty well, I think. I was pretty slow to react and set up my army in a good position to defend everything. And I didn't have my 3 pylons in front of my wall, so I couldn't overcharge as much as I wanted, and they weren't far enough out, so like my army couldn't back into anywhere because I had gateways right behind my army, so I couldn't really split or do anything, so I just tanked the baneling shots, and it didn't work out too well.
But thankfully, in the rest of your games, your play looked very, very solid. In your next matchup, you potentially have another Zerg in Namshar. Would you like to play another PPZ? Or on the flip side, you have Showtime, who, despite being one of the favorites at this tournament, you have a winning record against.
I think I would definitely rather play against Namshar because Showtime is just really, really good. But and I'm not doing too good in PvP right now. On ladder, I lose a lot, so Showtime is definitely harder, but I don't mind playing him. I think it'll be fun.
All right, sounds good. And speaking of Showtime and Namshar, that is the next match that'll be coming up after this break, so stay tuned, guys.
That's right. We see Neeb marching on into the round of 8, doing very well for himself against Lambo. I am joined once again by In Control and Todd. In Control, been watching those games. Neeb, overall, in that last game, may as well make Just Adepts have 10 health. Never mind 10 health minus, because he made them look good.
We're going to have to take away more, even more, you know, just minus 10 Adepts themselves. There's so many in that final battle, in that final game. But Neeb looks surgical, and that's the kind of Neeb that is a scary threat to win the tournament. When he freestyles, like the Cannon Rush yesterday, it gets a little bit garbo. But today, very, very good. And poor Lambo, who was playing really well, I didn't think he made huge mistakes either. I thought he played pretty okay. He just seemed to be a little bit outclassed there, which can happen. And it's just, there's no shame there when you're playing against Neeb, who is on that short list of foreigners, is probably the best.
No Christmas dinner greet from Zerg today?
You know, no. I mean, that's one of the things we noticed, right? No 3 hatch before pool. I think what happens too, and this is like the interesting meta, when you're playing In Control and ladder, you do whatever you want. You don't care. You're not really afraid. When you're playing Neeb, you're like, I don't want a 3 hatch before pool because I'm worried about what could happen. I don't want. It's a weird mind game because some players will take even less risks because they're so afraid and they respect him so much, and that's why we see a lot of absolute top players too play pretty safe because their opponents are almost doubling down on safe. Yeah. They don't have to take risks because they know their opponent's already doing that to themselves, basically. At
the same time, we did have ISONU versus Mage going on, Todd. You were keeping track of that series, I believe. Yeah,
I gave you guys a little status report during game number 2. Yeah. I killed a lot of STVs, and after that, he was just able to pile on through with the aggression. He used the fact that on Belcher Vestige, like Terrence, they take the forward expansion as a third base, which Special did on the north side of his main base. He used that against him, actually. He did a run by in the natural, brought all of the units of Special back, then attacked into the third base, kept on killing STVs, and even though Special put up a fight, you know, he dropped some bases, killed some drones here and there was way too much for him to handle. And it was weird because of the opener where the Ravagers attacked him and killed a lot. He was like, I have to go into tanks. And he kept on playing tanks, even though I transitioned into Ling Ben Muta which, I mean, if you're playing against that, you need to go Widow Mines, usually not tanks. So very well done by him. Now we're in game number 3 on Cactus Valley right now. he did a rush with 3 Roaches and 1 Ravager, like super interesting to me, you know, like I'm no expert in TVZ, but it seems to, a lot of the time, do quite a bit. He was well defended this time, and now we're headed into the mid-game. We're almost at the 7th minute, and IA has like a little bit of a supply leads.
Oh, wow.
But not too much has happened.
Who would have guessed?
Nice. I would have guessed.
Well, we can check in with the brackets, see what has gone on so far here in the round of 16. So let's go ahead and do that and get you up to date with everything that has gone on so far. As we do have Cyril and Neeb advancing on through, and we have a few more results filtering in there, as you were mentioning. Ayasonu currently going up against Special. Now,
that game is actually on Base Trade TV, if you guys want to check it out.
It's a good point, that is. And all the round of 16 matches that we are not covering here fully on the mainstream will be on Base Trade TV.
I think that means most of the ZvZs then.
Probably, yeah. And there'll be more to come. Oh, all right.
Someone other's like, I love ZvZ! Then get on Base Trade TV, man. Check it out.
It's good. I like ZvZ. That's fine.
Do you, Claire's?
Yes, I do.
Yeah?
I played a lot of Zerg, so there you go. I like ZvZ. It's okay.
I don't...
All right,
you're a good host.
we're done. We're
You're a
done.
good
We're done.
host. You'll say anything.
All right, so we're going to go to a short break, and when we are back, it's more action from WCS Austin. Don't go anywhere.